Stop it. Stop it. Sound. I know. Have you talked to the principal? Have you talked to... I think it's such a beautiful day. People are like, I'm not going there. I'm not going, I'm staying inside. It's a gorgeous day. Like, yeah, it is better. Oh, come on. Has he been a 44-year-old woman? I doubt it. I'm going to go with no. I'm going to go with no. Well, you guys tell me, we can just put everybody a post or just chat. Okay.
Yeah, I think we should just do that.
Okay.
So.
Or we can make the table smaller and just make it kind of a round, pull it in closer, pull these down and bring the camera closer.
Right up there.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Maybe we should do in one of the areas where there's more light.
Or bring everybody here, and then if people show up, then I'll just move this way. But have everybody come down here. That works? If we go here? No, I know, but I'm just saying, we can either, it probably makes more sense. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you tell me when they're set. Are they? Okay. Okay. That is it? Oh. So I'm thinking let's move this way, because the camera moves this way, they're streaming to St. George. If you guys don't mind moving down here, and if you guys want to move this way, is that cool? We're going to move this way, and that way if people... Will you tell everyone that, please? If we hop here, that would be awesome, and then people can, if they come on in, I can move and everyone can stay. That works out. Yep, this little, one of these shapes. Yeah, in St. George, there's some families there that asked that it be streamed, so we've got that camera set up. You can sit there, that's fine.
It's Dominic.
Sure, okay. Okay. Thank you guys so much for coming. I'm sorry about the delay with our technical problems here, but I hope everyone in St. George you can see okay. Please feel free to use your chat box so you can participate with us. We want you definitely to feel just as included as everyone here. So I am Katie Green. I am the parent consultant for the Utah EDDI program and the Utah Parent Center. So I have a kiddo of my own who's 10, whose name is Bella, and she's profoundly deaf. We use American Sign Language with her, and I get to chat and meet with all you amazing parents. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Rachel. Thank you so much for being here.
For sure, absolutely. Well, welcome, and thanks for coming. It was kind of funny, we were talking like, we should have like a mom's night out. And I'm like, I don't think that's politically correct. Right? Because dads would feel like, what about me? So we're like, a parents' night in, an informal Q&A. I don't know. So it's what it is, and I'm glad you guys are here. And I guess, do I introduce myself? I'm Rachel Coleman, or I can do it like Rachel Coleman. I'll do it that way. Hi, I'm Rachel. That's how you know it's really me. As you likely, is there anyone who doesn't know signing time? Be brave. It's okay if you don't know signing time. Okay, I just want to know how far on the same page we all are. I'm a parent of a deaf child. I'm a parent of a deaf adult. Leah's 22 years old and is a senior at RIT, the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. And I just sent Leah a text and said, tell me your major. So, hold on. because I can only remember so much. All right, hang on. So when Leah first went to college, their major was industrial design. Now, it is, as of 6/24 today, drawing, design, deaf cultural studies with a minor in sociology and anthropology. Now, that is your deaf child in the future, okay? Yay, right? We didn't do anything special. We had no unique skills. We knew nothing about deafness. I knew my ABCs in sign language, and we didn't know Leah was deaf until 14 months of age. Okay. Hearing parents, no connection to deafness, and I can't even repeat it. That's Leah's major as a senior, and then Leah just said that graduating with honors and all kinds of stuff that I didn't go to college. I was like, that sounds awesome. What does it mean? So that is the spoiler alert for you, is that you are here, you're involved. The spoiler alert is your deaf child or children, they're gonna be just fine. I'm not worried about your kids. I'm not, because you're here. You're already here, you're involved. I'm not worried about your kids. Now, I've also been in your shoes, and some of you maybe had more exposure to sign language than we did when we found out we were living with a deaf person. Oh, you've been deaf for a year and we didn't know? We feel kind of silly about that, right? And then there's kind of the hurry to either how do we manage this? How do we make up for lost time? Are you ever going to talk? How do we know if your hearing aids are working? When are we going to get reliable feedback from you about your experience as being a deaf child? What age does that happen? Should we or should we not implant our child? So are these, as parents, you've all been there, experienced it, everything from ABRs or passing tests. Oh, tympanogram is flat. It's just fluid. There's just fluid. Yay, it's fluid. Should we put tubes in the ears? Let's try antibiotics. Okay, just that process. And feeling also like, I don't want to make the announcement till we know. And I felt like I don't want to start learning sign language. I don't want to commit. It's so obvious if we start signing. People are like, oh, is Leah deaf? We don't know. It was like, I didn't want to answer the questions. I didn't want to start the phone tree in my family. I'm one of 9 kids. So it was like, we think Leah can't hear anything. And then how do we even talk about this? I had a hard time saying the word deaf. It felt so final. And I didn't know if that was the correct word for my kid. Leah has a severe to profound hearing impairment, is what the ENT told us. So it's like, what does that even mean? Is that hard of hearing? Is that deaf? And I also had times where it was like, oh, I kind of wish Leah was just profoundly deaf 100%, because I felt it would make our communication choices easier. If Leah was totally deaf, we would just sign and commit to that. And so we find ourselves, I found myself kind of in this, I wish I was psychic. I wish I could tell the future. I wish I could tell you each what your child will choose as their preferred communication method. Leah chooses everything. Leah uses everything. And it's really cool. I'm very proud. I'm really proud of Leah. In fact, Leah comes home from college on Sunday, on Mother's Day. And we were just in Rochester last week, and I'm like, why didn't I schedule this when you came home so people can meet you, so these parents can see this is the kind of human being that 2 hearing parents who don't even know anything about deaf culture or American Sign Language can produce. I'm really proud of us. I'm really proud of Leah. You might feel like you are limiting your child's ASL acquisition because you're the language model in the home. How can I be a model for a language I'm learning? And it just felt like, I'm hurrying to stay ahead of my deaf child. And Leah was just hot on our tail. As fast as I could learn it and give it to Leah, Leah was like, what's next? You know, what's next? Give us geometry. Everybody knows what it's like. So are those similar experiences, similar feelings? Were any of you already involved in a deaf culture, deaf community before you found out? Just you? Okay. You have deaf parents. I am so jealous. You know? And there's a completely different set of everything that comes with that as well. You know, obstacles and communication, and just like us, going out into the world. Still at 22, when Leah leaves the house, as I can't stop momming Leah, I can't stop. I'm like, I hope everyone understands Leah. Like, you know, even if it's Leah's gonna go order a smoothie, I'll be back with smoothies. And Leah leaves, and I'm like, I want this to be successful for you. I want your interactions with the hearing world to go smoothly. And that's like and don't text while you drive, you know, or just those other things that I don't know that it's specific to Leah being deaf or it's just momming, but still at 22, if that doesn't go away, you will always be your child's parent, and you'll be parenting, and you'll hope, and can people understand Leah's speech? I want it to work out. I want those interactions to be successful, and it's just not my business. Leah is successful. Leah goes to Target. Leah buys things. Leah has rented a storage unit. Leah has a dog, and Ubers to Costco and gets dog food, and doesn't has worked out being a grown-up in the world, and I still have those is it going to be okay? It is. It's going to be okay. So that doesn't go away. Bad news, good news, it's not going to go away. As far, I want to ask some questions, but I don't want anyone to feel like put on the spot. But I'm curious, how many of you sign? How many of you use any form of sign language with your child? If you don't mind raising your hands. Okay. And how many of you use listening devices or implants or hearing aids with your child? Okay.
We're hoping to get there.
Okay. Yeah, and it's so funny because for me to ask you, there's and how many of your kids throw them off and they're squealing in the back seat and okay, I was like, no, you didn't raise your hand. Which one have we said? The high pitched squeal and the feedback, and they're in the back seat. And you're like, oh well, that's me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not deaf. Oh, apparently that's not so good in cars for 2-year-olds. I don't know. And also laughing, being able to laugh at yourself and being able to acknowledge they're 2 or they're 4 or they're 7 or they're 22, and that's what 22-year-olds do, and that it's okay. I heard a quote recently where somebody had said, remember, your deaf child is a child, they're not a project. And it can be hard for us because we automatically go into how do we support and fix, not even fix, but how do we do this? And most of us are given a medical model for it from the get-go. At least I was. It was hearing aids, you can implant Leah and go from there. And for whatever reason, I looked at my deaf child and went, the only thing Leah can't do is hear. Leah's eyes work, hands work. Let's start communicating. We've already missed 15 months. This seems like the fastest way to feed language to this individual. So now, fast forward 22 years, I have been able to sit down with researchers, okay? So I've gone to Gallaudet, and I've sat down with Laura Ann Petito, and she does brain research on deaf children and codas, and I got to spend an hour with her. And I was just like, this is the most exciting hour of my life. And she researches language acquisition, okay? And I learned some amazing things that I wish I had known 20 years ago, okay? So a couple of the things that I got from our meeting. She said, Rachel, okay, deaf children, their brains are looking for visual patterns through their eyes. They're taking it in, and then they're sorting out patterns, and then they connect it and recognize it, produce language. So that's what a deaf person's brain is doing. It's taking, so your superpower, your child's superpower, is taking things in visually, looking for patterns, and going, that's language. So brains look for language. Brains don't discriminate between visual language or auditory language. Humans do. We do. Brains don't. So a brain is just as satisfied, just as happy to acquire language visually as it is auditorily. And it's actually the measurements, so crazy. She was telling me the measurements, like how a word is made up when you say it versus how a word is signed, they're exactly the same measurement of energy. So, and there's only a finite number. She's like, there's not more because you have 10 fingers and all of this space. The visual language is broken up into the exact same bits of energy and information in your brain as a spoken or listened to language. And I'm like, that is so cool. She's like, there's not one that's better than the other when it comes to your brain. Your brain's just going language, okay? So, your deaf child is just taking stuff in. Now, I'm sure we all have examples, right? Leah, before we knew that Leah was deaf, would be in the shopping cart at the grocery store and people would come up and say, hi! And Leah would look at them and go. And Leah's brain went, I see a pattern. People come up to me and mouth, and they raise their eyebrows and they look happy. They say hi. Leah couldn't hear it, so she's mimicking what it looks like for anyone to say hi to a cute baby in the cart. And I would sit with Leah in the car and say, Leah, say hi, hi. And Leah would look right back, copy it perfectly, because visually taking in, this is language. This is something important people do when they meet each other. They raise their eyebrows, smile, and open their mouths widely. And that's what Leah would do. So Leah's brain was taking in, like looking for patterns and acquiring language. That was language. That was information that Leah's brain was like, this is important. It's what people do. Leah would also walk up to people and she'd mouth some stuff, ba 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 ba, ha 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 ha, and walk away. That's me. Leah was fun, right? Mom comes up to people, says blah 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 blah, ha 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 ha, and walks away. So for Leah, it looked like this is an important pattern that happens in life. People come up, they say ma 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 ma, ha 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 ha, and walk away. And we're like, this is a quirky kid. This is one quirky. So do you have examples of your child? Yeah, can you give us one?
Yeah, I used to take an exercise class, like a bar class, so there was mirrors, and Bella always came with me. She was like 2.5, and she would walk up to the mirror and go, and do what the instructor was doing. So whatever the instructor
watch yourself in the mirror, and I'm doing the thing that you're doing.
And everyone loved it.
It's so cute. And it's true. If you can't hear it, that definitely is a pattern that you see. That happens, right? So for a hearing individual, you're taking in sound, and your brain doesn't know what it is on day one. The brain doesn't know what it is, and it's putting it together and going, oh, this means something. Now, when it comes out as language, it doesn't come out perfectly. You don't say mother. You say mama or ma. Okay, so again, if you think about this with your deaf child, I hope you're going to get some room. I hope it gives you some space to breathe a little bit, because we tend to put a lot of pressure on ourselves. Like, I don't know sign language, my kid isn't acquiring language, or they might have a delay because of me, it's all my fault, right? And is it your fault or my fault that Leah's deaf? That was always like, I think it's my fault. Secretly inside, I was pretty sure it was my fault. I was just glad we never checked. But I felt, we have enough guilt. We have enough whatever. Like, so this conversation is to give you a little bit of room. Another thing, so brains don't discriminate between visual and auditory languages. People do. Brains don't. Okay, so does that give you a little bit of space? Your kid, visual language is equal. Okay, it's equal. Now, here's something I didn't realize. When you look at visual language, reading is visual language. And a lot of times we feel like, how am I going to get my kid to learn English? How do I get another language in there? Deaf children are our top readers. Why? If you think about it this way, your deaf child has the opportunity to be a total champ, awesome reader. Because if their brain is programmed to look at patterns visually and turn it into language, written English is that access. Now, we experienced that, but I didn't realize what was happening. So, for example, one of the things that we did is we labeled our whole house, our whole apartment. We went and got the little index cards. They still make them. You can still get those. And flipped them over to the not striped side, like the blank side, and we wrote fan on it. And my husband stuck it on the ceiling fan, okay? And then we wrote rug, and we put one on the rug, and one said doorknob. And we stuck it on the, like, to leave the house, you had to grab the thing that said doorknob spelled out, and you had to open it. Microwave, refrigerator, everything, toilet, every word, bookcase, book, door, wall, like the carpet, tile, everything we could think of, because we wanted Leah's brain, who takes things in visually, to go, oh, you know what? There's more than one way to communicate things. I can finger spell when I have that skill. I can write it when I can write it. But right now, whether I can prove it or not at age 2, I can read these words. I can read. There's a written word that's associated to this object. Now, you also, if you're signing with your kids, you finger spell it. Because some things you don't know to sign for, or there's names, and some things you just finger spell, like ice. I-C-E, you can shorten it so it looks like this, but I would tell her first, this is I-C-E, that's ice. And there's no sign for yogurt, so we're going to finger Y-O, you finger spell yogurt, whatever signs we finger spelled at home. My name is Rachel. Your name is Leah. We talk about different people in our family, or Grandma Linda, the different grandmas and different grandpas, different names. And so Leah was taking in the finger spelling of it, which is a visual form of written words, okay? What happened is at age 2, we're driving through Los Angeles, and Leah says, Bobby, 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 which was her version of mommy, 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 but it sounded like with B's because the two words look exactly the same. And you live this, and I'm adjusting the mirror because I'm driving, right? Deaf kid in the back. And did you feel so sad when they had to face backwards and you're like, I'm in here, you're not alone, like, I can't even put you in the front seat. You're like, your first child should never be deaf. That's rule number 1. Second child, right? So they have someone to look at, but or mirror to mirror, we got this thing.
So much mirror.
Right? Oh,
the rear mirror plus the mirror plus the reflector.
All the mirrors. Oh, the other thing I needed was like a bag that went on a belt with hacky sacks in it. So we're in the mall, and when Leah took off, I could throw it at her.
I'm always like, what can I do?
I know. What can I do? What can I do? I don't want to hurt anybody. And then yes, I am trying to peg my child. It's awkward, but there's only things we all understand. I need a bag of things to throw at my kid. I can't, if I stomp, it's not going to go that far. I already know this. The mall does not translate. But, okay, so in the back seat, age 2, Leah says, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. And I'm like, hang on, wait for the light, right? Hang on, you're signing this way. Wait for the light, waiting. And I come up to the light, and I adjust the mirror now that I can see Leah. And I said, what do you need? She goes, Mommy, what does L-E-A-S-E mean? 2. Mommy, what does, and finger spelling, because we would play ABC games and handshake games, but what does L-E-A-S-E mean? And I'm like, okay, well, you know where we live? Yeah. Every month we pay money to live there. Yeah. And L-E-A-S-E is this too, but it's for a business. So they don't own their building. That building that says for L-E-A-S-E means that people can have their own business there and pay every month to L-E-A-S-E that. And then we start driving, and I thought, why am I having this discussion with a 2-year-old? But why was I having that discussion with my 2-year-old is a really good question. And how awesome when people say your deaf child is going to have language delays, how awesome is it that a mom and a deaf 2-year-old are discussing well, paying every month for an apartment is R-E-N-T, but paying every month for a building as a business is L-E-A-S-E. And like I said, I just answered the question, and as I drove, I went, that was really weird. That was like not, caterpillars to butterfly conversations that you have with 2-year-olds or blow on a dandelion. It was what, and as I thought about it, I went, oh my gosh, this is happening. Visual language coming in. L-E-A-H notices L-E-A-S-E. That's almost my name. Why does that, for me? Is it for me? For L-E-A-H? Like, it's so close. Maybe that's for me, could be the process. Now, Leah recognized a pattern and asked the question about it. And I thought, oh my gosh, if Leah was a hearing 2-year-old, they couldn't have asked the question, even if they recognized the pattern. Right? My hearing 2-year-old would not be finger spelling. So my hearing 2-year-old could have been driving along and went, that looks like my name. If we'd even, you put their name on stuff, and their t-shirts have their names and different things. But Leah couldn't have asked the question. Leah couldn't have written it down yet at 2. She couldn't have written, why is that L-E? Like, could have said, Mom, that, and I'd be like, yeah, birds. No idea. And I was like, this is so cool. So when I say that it's your kid's superpower is taking it in, I'm not kidding. And really look at it that way. English, written English, reading is your child's superpower. Now, how many of you have seen the YouTube video where Leah wins the spelling bee? You seen it? Yeah. We were terrified for Leah to compete because it wasn't fair. Leah was the only deaf kid in a school, Main Street at that point, and Leah's interpreter had contacted us and said, Leah wants to compete in the spelling bee, and we're like, that's a terrible idea, because most of those words don't have a sign. So what's the interpreter going to do? Finger spell it? You're going to give Leah the answer? I'm like, that's cheating. How is this going to work? And we sat there and I said, what do we do? I don't know how to do this. And I felt like Leah is at a disadvantage, being the only deaf child in a hearing school, and I don't want you to fail in front of everyone. It's our own concerns. It's me. I don't want to fail in front of everybody. And we project that on our kid. And if it were up to me entirely, I probably would have been like, maybe Leah will forget about it. Like maybe there's a way to talk Leah out of doing this. But fortunately, it's not up to me, And Leah was like, no, I'm going to study that list and I'm going to learn all the meanings. And there were, bizarre, like shopping, and bizarre, like crazy, were both on the list. And Leah got all of those. Like every word that you could spell 2 ways. Leah got them. And we were like, no, and they would say bizarre. And Leah says, can I get a definition? And we're like, can Leah hear the is Leah going to get the definition, understand the definition they give? And Leah ended up winning the spelling bee. Leah was a 4th grader, and it was the top spellers in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And Leah, a deaf 4th grader, won. So, there's so many stories inside that story. We want to protect our kids. We want them to have a successful experience. And sometimes we think the answer is by holding them back or keeping them from participating in something. And they might win. The odds were not in Leah's favor. When Leah was at a bye-bye school, there were hearing siblings of deaf children in the classes as well, and they would always win. They'd always win the spelling bee, at the bye-bye school, bilingual, bicultural, just in case anybody doesn't know. So they're, teachers are signing, and students are saying that, gosh, the bus drivers were deaf, the principal was deaf, and every time they had a spelling bee, it was the hearing siblings who were co-enrolled were the ones who would win. And so just to have Leah up against 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who've heard their whole lives, I'm just like, okay. But Leah's like, Mom, there's a Barnes & Noble gift card. Like, I'm winning this. There was no question for Leah. I am winning this. Reading we realized very early on the importance of reading, of literacy for deaf children. I thought, wow, if we sign and Leah's relying on sign language, everything Leah knows is going to come through me or Dad or a teacher or an interpreter. And I was just concerned, like, that's so limiting. Like, how do I give Leah the world? It's libraries. I don't know, it's the internet, for better or for worse, right? But they can access and read so much information. So another piece that I learned from Dr. Lori Ampetito is second languages. Okay, so when your child starts speaking, like I said, they don't say mother, they say mama. Okay, so they might sign here, or they might sign mom, or they might sign it back here. And the first time Leah signed mom to me, I missed it. They came up and did this, and I was like, ooh, I know this sign. And you're trying so hard because you want to support and get like success. I understood you, you understood me. And Leah's signing it, and I'm like, I know this sign, it looks familiar, I don't. And then Leah gave up and walked away, and of course, shortly after, I was like, oh, it was mom. Like, they'll never say mom again. I missed it. No, they said mom again, but that experience where it's like, I missed it. I feel like I failed as a mother because I didn't catch that first time that they signed it to me, okay? But, okay, there's a couple pieces to this. You are not the ceiling for your child's signing skills, okay? So if you're giving them visual language, and you're giving them visual language, and you labeled your house, and they go, there's more than one way to say things. I can fingerspell, I can grab you and take you to what I want. When I can write things. If I can develop speech, I might be able to say things that people understand. There's like all these different tools, things that they can do. And I always felt like I'm in this hurry to learn sign language so that I can teach my kid. And Lori Ampetito said, Rachel, parents aren't the ceiling of language. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I am. And she said, no, you're not. And she goes, and here's the evidence. Like, for families who the parents speak Spanish and English is their second language, their children don't grow up with their parents' accents. Right? They don't. They don't necessarily grow up and mimic the parents' the ceiling. That's the language model you have, so that's all you can do. She says that doesn't happen. Our brains are so hungry, we go beyond the model. And if you think about it, you'll find examples of this with your own children as well. You have, like, your kids will make up words, and you're like, that should be a word, right? If they'll, like, make up, I'm trying to think of a good example, but with hearing kids too, they'll conjugate verbs, and you're like, that's not right in English, but it should be, because their brain is going beyond what they've heard or what's been modeled to them and making connections beyond the examples. Does that make sense? Okay? So you are not the ceiling. You are a pool of information. This is an ocean of information, and they're picking up your expressions, and they're mouthing the word hi, or they're going ba 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 ba, ha 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 ha, and they're taking all these other things, and they take you by the hand, and they point. Leah had the clearest pointing of any 1-year-old ever. They would be like, you to me, you to me. And everybody knew, like, and we would say, you to me, you to me. Like, it was super clear, we still say it. And like, oh, me to you, like, I'm coming over there. It was so clear. This is before we knew that Leah was deaf. Or we'd go to Grandma's house at Christmas, and Grandma would be like, don't touch the nativity. Leah would not touch that nativity. If you looked at something pointed and you shook your head, there wasn't like, well, maybe I will touch the nativity. It was like visual patterns, communication coming in through the eyes, superpowered. I get you. I'm not touching the nativity. So your child is not at a deficit. Okay, so take away the conversation like, they're missing something. They are missing nothing. They have the exact same amount of taking in through their eyes. They're going, okay, I got this information, especially if you're labeling things and giving them visual language, okay? So you're not the ceiling, you are the ocean for your child to swim in. They will surpass you, thank heavens. And one of the coolest things that I've experienced as a mother is when I'm with Leah. I mean, Leah's signing skills are like, they're deep. They are deep. They're so deep now, having been at college with other deaf students. And I think it's so cool. Leah will say, some kids say they go home from college and the parents are like, wow, your speech skills have really gone downhill. I was like, really? Like, we've never been like, maybe you'll have super clear speech. That was not our goal. It was like, maybe we can communicate about everything and you'll be a critical thinker and you can gather information without relying on us. That was our view. How do we get that? And then that's the kind of the game we played, was how do we get you to have access to as much information as possible without your parents being the bottleneck of it. So Leah will FaceTime me, and Leah will be signing, and I'm like, will you voice a little? Please voice for your mother. Like, the signing has gotten so awesome ASL that I'm like, I'm a little bit lost. I'm missing about 25%, and Leah totally laughs. Now, it's not the same thing as I don't want to come home for Christmas because my parents can't communicate with me. It's being just like, my eyes are this big, and I'm so proud, and I'm so impressed. Like, I can't sign like that. I didn't teach you that. You didn't stop at me. You broke through the ceiling and are 100% your own individual and can do this on your own. And I'm so happy that that's how this story turns out. Okay, so you're not the ceiling. You are the ocean, and they will surpass you. And it's the best. It means you did a good job. They will leave you behind, and you're like, yay! And really, it's something that is success. If the goal is give my child everything, and set them out, set them free, and see what you do with your life. And like I said, it's all the list of things that Leah listed: drawing and design and minorities and anthropology. I don't know what it means, but I didn't go to college, and I have a deaf child who's going to be graduating with all of that. Okay, so I'm not the ceiling. The evidence is there. Resources. Do you guys have questions? Do you have specific questions about what we did or didn't? Leah did get a cochlear implant at age 7. That was 15 years ago, and I think the environment was a little bit different. I don't know. You guys have younger kids. It was really scary. I still have a hard time with it. Leah has one, and when the doctor says, do you want another, Leah says, I'm saving this ear for the future. Since technology changes so fast, I'm in no hurry. I'm interested to see what happens, right? And that's been Leah's take on it. We said, do you know there's a thing called a cochlear implant? And Leah at 6 said no, and wasn't wearing hearing aids at the time. And I wasn't a proponent of it. I was like, we're good. Like, we don't have a language delay. Leah can communicate everything. And then we just asked her, like, well, you go to school with, haven't you seen the little, you haven't? Leah's like, no idea. I'm like, we do signing time play dates, and all the kids have implants. And when I saw, I'll be totally honest with you, when I saw kids with implants back then, 15 years ago, I felt sorry for them. I was like, oh my gosh, your parents don't accept you and understand that you don't need an implant to get through. Rachel Coleman at signing time, I was like, I feel so bad that they did that. They think they need to fix you. And it's my own bias. Like, that's my own process I had to go through. It's still hard for me. I don't say don't do it. Parent, you are the parent. You decide. It's your child. You have the right to make those decisions and make informed decisions. Do they work for everyone? Nope. Do they work for lots of kids? Yep. And I'm not like, go do it. I have a hard time with it. Haven't watched my kid go through it. It wasn't a hallmark moment when Leah got activated. Leah cried and screamed and grabbed her head and said, turn it off. And I'm like, we're not posting that anywhere, It was not, I hear mom. It was not, And then Leah worked through it and was motivated themselves to work through the programs and was like, I'm ready for more. And we'd go back and Leah would get reprogrammed. And it's something, Leah's like, what did she say? The hearing man got me. Like, I love music. Like, I love music, and we go to concerts, and that's it. But first year of college, when Leah lost the implant, never lost a hearing aid, never lost anything. First year of college, I don't know, lost the implant, right? And we assume it's magneted onto a garbage can or something somewhere. It's still there. Come on, at NTID, the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, if somebody found an implant, they know those things have a serial number and they can find the owner. So I'm just sure it's like behind a garbage can on campus still. But lost it for months, and it took a long time for insurance. Leah didn't have to drop out of college, didn't miss a beat because they had interpreters and had live card captioning happen in classrooms. And a few hours after class, downloads notes. And so it was already set up. Leah's dorm room has a light that flashes when you ring the doorbell. Leah's a RA and gets reduced tuition because Leah can be an RA. And it's not like I had to go mom and explain, I know Leah's deaf, but they can still do this job. No, it was already set up. Campus communication with like campus safety is deaf kids can communicate through text. Like that was all set up before we got there. We didn't have to try to make accommodations for our deaf college student. It was already accommodated. The accommodations were there. So that's been, a really cool thing. Leah likes a silent weekend. Leah's like, I like to ease into my weekend, and doesn't put on the implant Saturday for most of the day and Sunday a lot of times. And that's, look, I've never been deaf. I go, okay, you like to ease in? Fine. What can I say about that? I've never been deaf. So for whatever reason, when we started this journey 21 years ago, we just really looked at what does Leah have, what are the pluses that we can focus on visually, manually, what's wrong with it. And because the reading of English was there too, it turned out that Leah developed speech very formally. So when you learn a second language, has anybody like learned, do you know Spanish? Or like you take a Spanish class or a French class, they teach you formally. Here's another piece. They teach you formally how to speak Spanish. It's not casual. It's like, right? It's grammar Spanish. You're not, unless you're just immersed in you move to Mexico and you learn Spanish that way. So another thing that Dr. Laura Ann Petito told me, she said, Rachel, because I said, it's funny, Leah learned English from books. And so Leah speaks very formally. Leah will say, Grandpa, you have a very fine son. And this was when Leah was 12, right? I'm like, I said no 12-year-old ever. And I said, but that's from books. But this researcher said, everyone learns their second language formally. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, everyone learns their second language more formally because you're taught English. You're taught how to speak proper English. And you're taught how to speak proper German. Right? You're like, this, and then move the words around and get in the right order. So I thought that was kind of a fascinating thing too, because I thought it was a product of Leah learning English, written English, reading English, and then at age 7 having a cochlear implant and learning to hear and understand those words. Jury's still out. Researcher says everybody's second language is formal. I think it probably helps because books are written, right? That's a formal form of English, is writing it. We speak differently than we write. So just some interesting little tidbits there. Your deaf child, if they learn English as a second language, may speak it very properly. So, questions you have, things you're wondering about specific circumstances, instances. Yeah, Samuel.
So on signing time, in the earlier episodes even, I noticed Leah talking. Mm-hmm. It's not real clear, but if you know what she's saying, you can tell that's what she's saying.
Right, in context,
and
you can tell.
I expect that was before her implant.
Yeah.
So how did she acquire the ability to speak, even if it's not real clear?
So it's a great question, and I don't know if I have the full answer yet. And I can tell you what we experienced, okay? Like I said, Leah didn't go to speech therapy because I had heard stories. I mean, you do. You start meeting deaf people, you start hearing stories. And so back then, the story I heard was of deaf adults who spent hours upon hours in speech therapy and resented their parents. Okay, and then they found ASL when they went to high school or college and felt like they could really communicate. And so, again, 22 years, that's the story I kept hearing. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that, right? All these other people resent their parents, and I go, no parent is out to screw up their kid, even their deaf kid, even hearing parents and hearing kids. Almost all of us have some resentments toward our parents. I have some resentments toward my hearing parents, and I'm a hearing person, okay? So we resent our parents. And you hear, how many of you heard similar stories? Yeah? Okay. So you hear these stories, you're like, I'm not going to grow up and have my deaf kid not like me. So I felt like I don't feel like my measure of success is that my deaf child can pass as hearing. Okay? I didn't feel like if Leah can speak clearly, we win. People had told me, oh, my brother's deaf and nobody in school knows. And I thought, how hard? That sounds really hard. I wasn't like, ooh, inspired by it. I thought that sounds really hard to be passing for hearing, and that wasn't our goal. So I was like, I want people to know my kid is deaf because I want to make sure they accommodate that, or they're looking at Leah and they're not covering their mouth, or they tap Leah to get their attention. Like, that's just what I thought as a mom. So heard the stories, hours and hours of speech therapy, trying to say words correctly that they didn't have a context for. I don't know English. I just thought, why would I try to get her to say words in a language Leah doesn't have and doesn't know? This doesn't seem like a good use of time. I want Leah to be a critical thinker. How can I get there? Okay, so that, and I was 22 when I had Leah. This is, like I said, you're so far ahead of where I was. It was just, Anna hadn't gone to college and had a deaf kid. We just figured stuff out. So looking at, I don't want to hide the fact that my kid is deaf. And then the weirdest thing was, our goal wasn't clear speech. Our goal was language. And language boosts language. Okay? Language doesn't detract from language. This is the only, like I said, I don't have a great answer. What we saw was the more signs we gave Leah and the more understanding of language Leah had access to, the more words Leah would say. It made no sense. We didn't try to get Leah to say words. We actually, when we lived in Los Angeles, we went to the John Tracy Clinic, which is famous for oralism. But they had a free parent class, and I'm like, let's just go see what they say. Like, maybe we can learn something. Never gone to speech therapy. Let's just see what they do. And they actually, we walked in, and Leah's 2 were just like, well, I'm Leah, I'm age 2, my birthday is December 8th, and they said, Leah needs to stop signing. And I said, you tell a 2-year-old to stop doing anything, good luck. And they said, no, can you tell Leah to stop signing in here? And I said, no, that doesn't work. That's how Leah communicates. So they let us in to this play group. And Leah was pointing things out to the other kids and would name the signs that Leah had. So Leah would say ball or appropriate, like you heard Leah say probably I like and I don't like in signing time. So Leah says I like, I don't like. But it sounds like a deaf child. I like, I don't like. Leah's doing this at the John Tracy Clinic toddler class. And she's pointing things and talking about stars and showing everybody. And the other parents are going, oh my gosh. Like they were stunned. And they're like, what? They said the same thing. Why does Leah have such good speech? And I said, because we've only focused on language. We've never focused on speech. Now, I don't even know if that makes, if we can hear what that actually means. So language is different than speech. Speech is a skill. This is like, if I have a soapbox, like when I die, it's probably going to be on my headstone. Except for I'm being cremated, so don't bother. But make a t-shirt or something. This is like Rachel Coleman says on my Wikipedia page, right? This is it. Speech is a skill. And your child has their whole life to learn how to say words correctly, if they choose. If they choose. Speech is a skill. So one of the problems that I saw with the setup of my parents made me go to speech therapy to try to learn how to say words in English is they weren't learning English. They were learning speech. And that is why you see language delays in deaf children. Because the focus is saying words in a language they don't know and they don't understand, not language. So what's a language? English is a language. Is that likely to be a deaf child's first language? Probably not, because it's going to take a lot to get to understand and acquire a spoken, listened to language when your superpower is taking it in through your eyes. Okay? So, speech is a skill. This is my t-shirt. Speech is a skill your child has their whole life to learn if they choose. Language is right now. You found out your child is deaf today, language is today, and you can start today. And you don't have to wait to find out if the hearing aids work or to find out if the cochlear implant took. You don't wait for language. Language is now, and it's available everywhere. Label your house, read books together, learn signs, start giving them language. They have to have language. So you were saying at school, they're saying a lot of the deaf kids are delayed, or they're at lower levels, lower educational levels than a mainstream school. How do I know when my deaf child is ready to be mainstreamed? And if they are mainstreamed, I don't want them going in. How do you get them here? And that's a really good question to ask, because not every parent of a deaf child is asking that question. So we had a similar feeling, like when early intervention came to our home, and I said, what does it mean that Leah's deaf? And they told me, this is here in Utah, statistically it means your deaf child will graduate from high school with a 3rd grade reading level. Okay? That's what they told me. That is what they said, okay? And I said, you're from the state. And the school is run by the state. And you're telling me if I stick my kid in your school, by the time they're 18, they can read like an 8-year-old? I don't trust you. What are you doing wrong? Because when I looked at Leah, I just saw a kid who needed a different language. It wasn't my kid is disabled, it's my child's going to have a different first language than me. That's an interesting thing to deal with. Not you have a disability and you have a lifelong delay or anything. Deafness doesn't disable your child. Deafness isn't the reason your child has a language delay. It's a lack of language. If you're not giving your child language, they have a language delay. If you're just trying to talk to them and they can't hear you, there will be a language delay. So, languages, American Sign Language is a language, Spanish is a language, German is a language, these are all languages. Give your child language, and language pushes language. Why does Leah speak so well? I say it's because we gave Leah language. And then Leah wasn't trying to learn English. Leah just started naming things. Leah was looking for visual patterns, and if I said ball, Leah went, and then when Leah started to voice, it came out ball, because Leah was looking for visual patterns. It wasn't, can you say ball? Can you say ball? Never. It was, this is a ball, or this is a ball, or this is a ball, and showing those different things, and the visual learning brain goes, I see a pattern, and then just started repeating that, giving that pattern back. So our favorite quote from a parent at that John Tracy Clinic class, because they asked us the same thing. Leah's 2 years old. Why is Leah's speech so great? I said, we give Leah language. And the guy says, you can have all the language in the world, but if you can't talk, what good is it? Now this is another dad, and that was his perspective for raising his deaf child. If you can have all the language in the world, but if you don't know how to talk, what good is it? And I said, you're the one praising my child. Like, you're the one saying, how'd you get that? And I'm saying, we're signing. We are feeding language, and Leah's brain is going, give me language, and then however that came out for Leah, was the ability to say words more clearly than the kids whose focus had been try to say words. Does that answer a question? Does that answer? I don't know. Speech is a skill your child has their whole life to learn. Language is today. Yeah.
So you keep saying read to your child. How do you do that with a book?
You sit down with a book,
Okay.
and you can do many different things. So you definitely want to and we get weird. Hearing parents get weird about books and reading, okay? But don't we go like, how are we going to read to them? They don't know English.
I'm trying. I haven't done it yet, but I would love to read my child. But at this age, my other two were doing were like keeping the books for me. I couldn't even turn the page.
Because they're two.
I'm holding the book. How do I sign it? Like,
Yeah.
How do I?
So
be
there's
able to do that with them?
there's a lot of different ways. First, there's introducing books. Does anyone else have this problem? And truly, it is us. We go, I don't know how to get them to read, but what's their superpower? Visual patterns, and their brain is going, give me visual patterns, and I will make it into language. Okay, that's what their brain is looking for. And if you're going, how am I going to?
read the book and she's turning the pages, but that's as far as it's gone.
But it's not, because what's her brain doing?
Well, I mean, as far as I have gone.
Okay, but you are not the ceiling, okay? So you are not the ceiling. You give a book to your deaf daughter, and your deaf daughter's turning the pages. And what's your child's brain doing? Like, again, we think we know. My brain doesn't work this way. It's like you've got to have faith. You just have to know, my brain works this way. I listen. Your child's brain does this. So if your deaf 2-year-old's holding a book and turning pages, let's take a guess what their brain's doing.
She's taking in, like, there's like times that I saw her and she's just like,
She's
at the pictures.
Yep.
She's like looking and looking at every detail.
And if there are words, guess what? Maybe she can't read them, but what's her brain doing? If there's words on a page and your deaf child whose superpower is this, what can we guess is happening?
She's taking them in.
She's taking them in and seeing patterns. The brain is going, I see patterns. A-N-D, that's a pattern. T-H-E, that's a pattern. Okay, so just know you are not the ceiling. Their brain is primed for this. They're looking for language. They're connecting patterns. They go beyond you. They're going to go beyond you. She's looking at pictures and colors, and look, there's more on this page. And she's like, wait, that's the same guy that was on this page, but now the guy's doing something else. And her brain is creating the story and looking for patterns. So giving your deaf child books, number one. Give them books. Let them see books. Let them see words. Especially if you're labeling your house, they're going to go, that word's the same word. And you're going to go, wow, I didn't even realize that word. Or I shared with you guys earlier, at just over age 2, and as we're finger spelling things, I thought, I wonder if Leah can read these words. Ice, I-C-E. I write it down, I-C-E. Rachel, R-A-C-H-E. I write down about 26 words that we finger spell in yogurt. I hand it to my 2-year-old. Leah looks at it. Her brain sees a pattern. I-C-E. We had posters of ABCs and alphabet, and at 2, Leah would go A-B-C-D, couldn't say it, but would go through the manual alphabet. We'd come in at night, and Leah would be laying in bed going,
My son did that.
Yeah, all the time. Because it's visual patterns.
We're still.
You're not the ceiling, right? So start language. There's things you can do today. Language is right now. So don't worry. You're going, Leah did that at 2. My kids don't worry. We labeled the house. We had language everywhere. It was like, oh my gosh, how do we get as much language into this little person as possible? I thought, we missed 15 months. 15 months in the window 0 to 3. I was probably the worst mom ever, because I'm just like, how did we miss half the window? And I'm just assessing, what do hearing kids know that Leah doesn't know? Trying to figure out, how do I get this in 0 to 3? So Leah would sit there. This is a pattern. This is a visual A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. It's a pattern. And they go, got it. My brain gets that. My brain gets it before a hearing kid could ever say it correctly. Your deaf child's brain is taking that pattern. So Leah looks at the paper. I-C-E. I-C-E. I see, that goes in water. Ice. R-A-C-H-E-L, looks at her hand, R-A-C-H-E-L. Oh, Mom, that's your name. L-I-N-D-A, looks at, so took it from written to the hand, finger spelling, to the word. Again, there's more, what's more important, like, for a deaf child than for them to understand there's more than one way to communicate everything. And they were sharing earlier, well, our 2-year-old sometimes won't sign. And so, can I share? Like, that, you know, she won't sign. She just kind of stopped, they moved, and she stopped signing. Does it mean she's not learning? No, because guess what those eyes and brain are doing all the time? She's watching you sign. If you're signing, she's watching. If you have captions on your TV all the time, she's looking. You're giving her books, there's words everywhere, right? So she instead, she's not signing, but she grabs Dad by the hand, takes him into the bathroom to the bath, and then says, Dad, pull up my shirt. So it's bath time. She didn't sign, it's time for a bath. But is she communicating? Oh, she is. So we go, they stopped signing. They didn't stop learning language. Unless you cover their eyes. They're looking at patterns. Unless they're covering their eyes. Totally.
Yeah, she doesn't like looking at this, especially me. She does. Whenever I start signing, she just like.
And that's okay. Because guess what? Your deaf child's peripheral vision is better than yours. It's better. No, it's better than yours. So she won't look at me when I'm signing. She is looking. Her brain is going, I see visual patterns. I'm going to turn it into language. Even if you're going, she's not looking. Now, have you all had this? I close my eyes, I don't look at you. You can't tell me no. I'm not eating broccoli. I close my eyes, you disappear, parent. And that's their prerogative. They get that, right? They get to do that. So I don't know if that answers the question about speech. When Leah got an implant at age 7, they told us, you're too late. You got to get it early. And we went, all right. And they actually turned us down. They said, you're a terrible candidate. You never worked on speech. We're not going to implant this kid. And I said, I can't believe I'm going to fight for a cochlear implant, is what I said. Like, this is ridiculous. I was embarrassed. I said, you've never implanted a kid like Leah. I said, you've implanted babies who have no language. You've implanted kids who were oral and failed, or whatever that means. But I highly doubt you've implanted a 6-year-old who's bilingual, who's fluent in ASL, and fluent in written and reading English. We never worked on speech because we were working on language. If this implant works, and Leah can hear some things, we'll work on speech. But we weren't going to work on it when Leah can't hear anything. So if it works, the stuff we've done over here with language, that's done. Language is happening. Like, we're on target. We're beyond. Leah's great. We'll work on speech. And they were like, okay, if you promise you'll work on speech and you'll stop signing. And I was like, fingers crossed behind my back, I will stop signing. Never. So you can lie to your speech therapists. I'm giving you permission to lie, okay? And you can lie to your ENTs. I'm giving you permission. Did you need permission? Did you need Rachel Coleman to say, you can lie or you're a liar?
I may not have quoted you. My husband talked to you about my son's implant at the Eddie conference in Chicago. And he talked to my son at 6, and we were currently fighting for an implant.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, his brain is dead. They're like, his language center is so closed. I was like, I don't accept that.
At 5?
6.
Oh,
He's 6.
They said we won't implant because his language center is closed. Like, was there a light on that said closed and it's flashing, it's after 6 p.m.?
It was like 0 to 1, pretty prime time, 1 to 2 when most kids are implanted, 2 to 3, we're getting on the late side, 3 to 4. That's
What did I say? Tell me I gave them sage advice. What did I tell your husband?
He said, he was like, well, and they were like, I've never met a kid who was successful after 6.
I know what I told him. I remember.
He was like, well, I actually just talked to Rachel Coleman, and her daughter got implanted at 7, and she's doing just fine.
And they're like, Rachel Coleman, the bane of every ENT's existence.
Go to them and say, remember Leah Coleman? He did.
It was it the same doctor too?
Probably.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I do. I'm like, pull the Leah Coleman card. Because they didn't even go there. The silly thing is, when Leah was diagnosed as deaf, They weren't implanting kids until after age 2, okay? So 20 years ago, 21 years ago, when Leah was 15 months old and we found out that they were deaf, and they said, you know, there's a thing called a cochlear implant. And I said, yeah, I don't really think we're interested. And they said, that's no problem because we can't implant Leah until after age 2. And then we just went. We just, woo, took off. And I never was like, man, we could really use a cochlear implant right now. Like, that just never happened. And then at age 6, it was like, wow, the technology is really changing. And I met some adults and kids and different people who had implants. And I'm like, that's pretty crazy. Like, this thing is like, Leah, what if there was something they could do surgery and it could improve your ability to hear what people are saying and it could improve your speech? And Leah's like, wait, are you telling me seriously, there's something that could improve my speech and people could understand me and there's something that could help me understand it when hearing people talk to me? And I was like, it might, it could possibly, it might possibly help that stuff. I don't, and Leah's like, well, when can I have it? And then I'm like, so conflicted, because I'm like, ASL, and we're signing time, and ASLU, and I feel bad for your implanted children, and now I'm going to have one, possibly. So Leah's like, when can I have one? You're telling me that when I talk to Grandma, we can just talk? And I'm like, maybe, it's possible. You might improve your speech. You might improve your listening skills. You might, and it may not work. And Leah's like, let's find out. When can I have it? So Leah was at a bye-bye school with a deaf teacher, deaf principal, everything, and we're like on the down low. We go in, gets an MRI. Like we say, don't tell anybody, don't talk about it. Don't like we were doing this secretly. And one day Leah comes home from school, and there's a story she's written called "The Girl Who Wanted a Cochlear Implant," and there's a picture of a girl in an MRI tube, and there's a note. Leah's in 3rd grade and is 8 and spells cochlear implant correctly. The girl who wanted a cochlear implant draws this, is an artist, draws this picture of a body in an MRI tube, and there's a note from the teacher that says, hey, can we talk? And we're like, oh, I think Leah got the implant over Christmas break because it's a long, I'm not even kidding. We were like, ooh, and when word got out, there were people that never invited Leah over to their house again, that didn't invite Leah to their kids' birthday parties ever again. There were. I got letters and emails from people who said, I will never refer anyone I know to your products again. I can't believe you implanted Leah. And, and there are people who have, and I said, guess what? I understand. I actually understand. I was you. I felt really bad when I saw kids with implants. I totally understand. Do you have a deaf child? No. Are you deaf? No. Well, I hope you never have to make the choices that I've had to make in my life, is where I leave it. You're the parent. You're the parent. Now, you are the parent. I always say there is one person that you answer to. Like, you make the choices, you have the legal say. I answer to Leah Coleman. That's who I answer to. That's it. Out there in the world, there are people who don't like me or think what I've done, they have whatever opinion they have, or they can't believe I implanted my kid. And I go, I totally get it. From wherever you're coming from, and you see my life, and we've been very public with our journey. I'm still a mom. I still want to protect my kid. I was terrified of what would happen to Leah if we put Leah in signing time and Leah had a cochlear implant. It wasn't about the criticism of signing time or me. It was, my child is not the poster child for this. We're just trying to work it out. We're just trying to figure out the stuff we got here and doing the best we can, and we accidentally stumbled into a fairly public platform about it, and people are watching us to see what we're doing. I was like, I don't want a wave of deaf children to get implants because Leah got an implant. I don't want that responsibility. They don't always work. They don't always work well. 3 weeks ago I was in Rochester, and last weekend I was in Rochester, but 3 weekends ago I was in Rochester and I was talking to an audiologist who went deaf. And I'm like, you're a deaf audiologist, like you're every parent's dream. Like, wait, come move to Utah, right? I was like, this is so cool. And she got cochlear implants. So I was talking with Tina, and then Leah says, Mom, this is my friend, and brings over this cute gal, and this girl's telling me her experience with her implant, and she's on track to have her 4th one. Okay, the first one rejected, like grew out. And I was like, oh, as a parent, I would have just been like, I'm the worst parent. I implanted my kid, and they're the one who rejected it. This is right. Guilt, shame, terrible, you failed. Me, right? And so she's like, no, and it grew out. It was so crazy. So I got another one. Now she's telling me the story, and she's like laughing, and she's like, this is a 22-year-old. And I'm going, this is really interesting. She goes, the next one I had, I'm 7 years old, and every time I'm in the shower or swimming, I get shocked. And I'm like, oh, what? And she's like, and nobody believed me. She's like, I told my parents, I told my ENT. They're like, that can't happen. And I'm like, no, it's totally, no one believed me. I'm like, why would I lie about this? Like, it's literally, I'd be in the shower and be like, I'm being shocked. And it wasn't on until like she's in the shower with it on, and she's laughing, and there's this deaf audiologist, and I'm the parent like, my soul is shrinking, because I'm like, if I was your mom, what, or if I'm Rachel Coleman and my kid is on their 3rd implant, And then she's like, and so then they went in, they checked, and no kidding, the water seal had broken. And they went in, and I'm like, they went in, and I'm almost crying. And they took it out, and yeah, it was a total defect thing, fluke thing, and I got my 3rd one, and I'm like, and she's just talking, and I'm like, why? Why did you just, throw it out? She's like, because I love it. This one, it just died, and I have to go get my 4th one. And I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty sure I heard your story. But it was never told like this. And nobody ever told me, but everyone tells her story. I'm like, I bet you've heard her story. And it goes like this. I know someone, and they had a cochlear implant. And every time they got in the shower or the swimming pool, they got shocked. And you're like, oh. And then I know someone else, same girl. And it rejected and came out of her skin. And you're like, oh, I would be. And it's the same. And she's I said, I can't believe you're laughing about this. Like, I would be scarred, right? Would you? And she's like, no, I love it. I'm getting another one. I'm like we've all heard her story. Like the warning, the tale of the cochlear implant, It was the weirdest thing for me as a parent to sit there with this girl who's in college, who has an implant, who's going on her 4th one this summer. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm sure I've heard your story, and it was never told like this. So the moral of the story is our kids are resilient. They're resilient. They get to choose. You get to choose, and you get to answer to them. And I want to meet her mom one day and just ask her how she personally survived that, because I don't think I would leave the house, But we don't know how it's going to go. We don't know how it's going to work. Language always works. Language doesn't delay language. It just doesn't. And so, like I said, speech is a skill. That's my T-shirt. It's my headstone. And spoiler alert, your kids, they're going to be just fine. You're here, you're connected, you're looking for answers, you're, willing to move. Things we do for our deaf kids. We moved. I drove an hour to school each way. What the things we do, those are not the kids I'm worried about. So, spoiler alert, that's the trajectory. Any questions, other things you want to know about Leah, stuff you want to know about signing time? I want to know what you need. Like what do you have deaf mentors? Yes?
For early interventions.
Okay. If your children are age 35 months or under, you can get Sign It for free. Do you know that mydeafchild.org? Make sure families know they can get online. You can learn in secret when you lie to your speech therapist. You can learn at home, and it's the only ASL curriculum created by a hearing parent for hearing parents. Our superpower is this. As hearing parents, our superpower is this. And so when I created Sign It, I went, every time I'm in an environment where I'm not hearing anything and I'm supposed to learn, it hurts me. Like I feel pain. And I was like, if I could just hear it, I could learn it. And so we added the spoken gloss. And so that, if you don't like it, turn it off. There's captions, there's options. So that the American Society for Deaf Children is a 52-year-old organization. I'm the executive director. And in January, I launched a program called Sign On with ASDC. And so if you're a member, which you go to deafchildren.org/join, it's $35 to join. You can join and immediately request your code to use this program called Sign On. We give you 5 free half-hour sessions with deaf adults. They're deaf ambassadors, and they've all scored a 3+ on Gallaudet's ASL proficiency interview. And you will see a different one each time. So if you just want your deaf child, or you, or your spouse, or your kids to see me interact with 5 different deaf adults, that is a service we provide free as long as you're a member. So it's $35 and it's $125 worth of value. So deafchildren.org is the American Society for Deaf Children's website. Join, request your code. We were able to provide that to 500 families, and more than 300 have already taken us up on that offer. So, and it's not limited to an age. If you have a deaf teenager, you have a deaf 10-year-old, that's available for you as well. Anything else that you have seen is really missing other than permission to lie? We're not signing. Yeah. Is there anything? Yeah.
It's okay. I wish that, even though I'm a CODA,
Yeah.
I wish that there was some sort of program that taught parents how to reach their kids.
Okay.
Like, I wish there was, I can reach this.
Right.
But his dad, hi there.
Yeah.
His brothers and sisters,
Okay. There are some. So there are some literacy programs online. I believe Gallaudet has some, but that is, I can definitely
I
find.
wish Utah had some.
Okay, so you don't want online. You want face-to-face, or would online suffice?
I think face-to-face, because online means oh, I didn't sign that right. How else could I do that? Face-to-face is here's a way, here's a way. And I know we have deaf mentors, but that's not like you said, up to free, and then
And I don't know that that's a part of they follow a specific curriculum too.
they do follow a specific curriculum, but that's part of it.
Yeah.
But it's more focused on language more than.
I wonder if for now, a quick cheat for that, even though it's not face-to-face, would be to use the sign-on program, and when you sign up for your session, say, please bring this book. You could say, bring whatever, I have this book, I want to read this book to my deaf child, I want you to help me. They may or not be able to get the book, but at least they know they can look it up and things like that. That would be one option, is at least you can, for free, say, hey, this is what I need out of this session. This is how I do it. Can you give me feedback? How would you do it? And use one of your half-hour sessions or all of them to get coaching on that. I think.
He could do it. He could tell me a story it's beautiful. That's great.
Yeah.
But for dad or for siblings or
So one of the things that we did a storytelling workshop. We brought Peter Cook in and provided, and he's a master ASL storyteller, and did a storytelling workshop. It was about 4 hours. Is that the kind of thing you would be interested in?
Yes.
That.
But I think that's
No, it was free.
I'm pretty sure it's a free event.
I put it on. Yeah, I did.
It
was like a year ago.
A year or two ago?
yes. So yes.
But that would
I
be.
don't think I went. I think we both had a complete.
We had people
we
drive.
talked about going
There.
together.
Okay.
And both used
So
to
that-
we could not.
That's one of the things. That's
If we had more things like that,
Okay.
that would for me.
Okay. So one of the things that ASDC is providing, and we would do 1, and then we did 3, and this year we're doing 9, are ASL weekends. And it's 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., and we fly in a team of deaf instructors, and they do a quick conversation with you and go beginner, intermediate, advanced, and it's a 2-day workshop. It's typically $200, but for ASDC members, you can get $150 off. So it's breakfast, lunch, 2 days, and ASL instruction. So we don't have one coming here yet, but that's something to keep in mind. I've been thinking a good follow-up to that weekend, maybe a month or two later. So we do the ASL weekend, and then 2 months later have an ASL storytelling workshop with Peter Cook. That's the kind of thing. So there's the closest one is probably Phoenix. So we just had one in Riverside, California. We have one coming up in Rochester. Again, this is, if you just subscribe to the info on ASDC or become a member, you'll see it all. Or follow our Facebook page, American Society for Deaf Children. I was hired as an executive director about a year and a half ago, and I'm like, we need resources for families to learn ASL. I can't stand that I had to fight as hard as I had to fight for ASL for Leah, and you guys are still in the same boat, and Leah's 22. I'm not okay with that. That doesn't work for me. And so that's why when I said, I want to see what resources you need. So we have had a couple times, we've had a couple people say that they would donate airfare for a family who needs to travel. So that would be worth it as well. So I would say pay the $35 and join and say, I want to attend an ASL weekend. Is there one coming to Utah? Or is there a way for me to travel to one? A couple weeks ago, I had a gentleman say, I have airfare and I would like a family to be able to attend who couldn't otherwise attend, just so you know. So that's one possibility. And then, like I said, I've been thinking of, once we have those 50, 75 people, mostly parents, and we've been teaching them, you think 3 months later or 2 months later, what feels like a good time frame to follow up with a 1-day, 4-hour workshop? So the ASL weekends, it's pretty intensive. It's like 8 a.m. to 5, 8 a.m. to 3, or 9 a.m. to 3.
A month or two?
That's what I'm like, I need a break. What do you guys need?
Yeah.
Like a couple months?
I would say like a month or two, because if you just learn a whole lot of things,
And you're
want to
putting it in?
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you want time to
Yeah. But I'm not kidding. We had one ASL
Time
weekend.
of year is hard too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Summer is pretty much out.
you after that.
And that's another, what's interesting is we've had 3 ASL weekends in Pennsylvania in the last year. And it's been Erie and Scranton, they moved, but the School for the Deaf has said this was so successful, we want you to come back, because they'll get all the parents on a bus from Erie and go to Scranton to go a second time, to increase their skills. So anything else that you go, man, yeah.
I have a list.
You have a list? Can I give you a card? I'm going to give you all my cards.
I almost feel like I don't know if I should start.
I'm so glad you have a list. I know we started late. I know we're running long. I know we have children. So let me make sure you each have my cards.
Babysitter, she's cool.
There's going. We're never leaving. We're never leaving. I know you're going to hear. Send me your list.
Yes.
Yes. We promise you need 2. You're together.
we're married.
You're married. We're good. Melanie, take this though, because
So sorry.
No, because you want to know.
Yes.
No,
Thank you. So sorry.
No. And there you go. And you guys are together. Now, you have told people in St. George to send comments.
Yes.
They're going, no one's listening.
I haven't seen anything pop
Okay,
up yet.
good job. I wanted to make sure that they were like, nice. They're going, thanks so much. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, I don't even know how much time we scheduled, and
We have 3 minutes.
Oh, it's 3 minutes, and you still have food and cookies and waters,
We
but
have so much time. Go all night.
don't tempt me. Don't tempt me.
Babysitter's a high school student, so
No.
there's so much.
I totally get it. Send me your list.
I
Okay?
will send you my list.
One of the things that I've been looking at, so ASDC, what is it?
Send me your list.
Send everyone your list. We all want the list. One of the things we've done is
The commentary from your list.
last year here we had a family conference, and one of the things that I realized as a parent is I am over conferences. I don't know if you've been to as many as I've been to. I've been to a lot of conferences. Leah's 22. I've been to a lot of conferences. I am over them. And I thought I would rather, instead of having a conference somewhere in the U.S. every year, in the summer, I would rather have a family camp, where we actually do fun things, and there are deaf people that show us how to do that and communicate about it with our deaf child. Does that
Totally into that.
conference? Let's vote. Who wants camps? Okay. Yes, family means with siblings. But some of the feedback after the conference in Utah, because we have childcare, and parents were like, my kids went to Thanksgiving Point, and they went to all these places, and they went with deaf adults. And I wanted to go, because I wanted to see how does a deaf adult do that with my kid. I don't have that skill. I don't have the skill set. I interact with my kid how I do, but I want to go see how they are when they go to Thanksgiving Point. And so I thought that was pretty important. Like, what if instead of one conference, we had a number of regional family camps that were just a weekend, and there's, swimming and rock climbing and horseback riding or whatever there is, or planting and gardening and swinging and whatever, games, and we get to see, it's like having a deaf mentor, but not just coming to my home for an hour and do that. Does
I
that?
mentioned my favorite session from that conference was the hands-on learn to play games with your deaf child session. So a whole weekend of that kind of stuff.
Right, that's what I'm thinking.
I was like, that was the most helpful and most applicable session.
Okay, so playing games.
It was
Reading
just like
books.
how to include them, right?
Yeah,
Just like, and all these things can be in the fun family camp, right?
And then the storytelling, like with Peter Cook, it's not like just in ASL. He's literally going, how do you use your body? It's not just word. It's your deaf child wants to see you become the thing, and you're not just going, and then the lion, and you're like a lion, and you're acting it out, and there.
We were taught in my
Exactly.
first level class.
Yes, that. So there's that, and there's word. There's a time for word. But if they're two, you're probably not as focused on word, and you don't need to worry about it, because what's already doing the word thing? Their brain. They got it. Yeah, their brain's doing it, okay? So I love that. We're seeing more interactions with deaf adults as role models in different scenarios, more storytelling, and you said the games, playing games was key.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was my favorite session. So I
Cool.
think a family camp would be fun. Just
Okay.
like fun things to do, like how could this look to include a deaf child in these kinds of activities?
Right? Without me going, they're deaf and they can do everything everyone else can do. I just have to interpret for them, right? So
Also, I think some sort of, this gets into a whole different ballgame. I would like to see some support for extended families. My husband and I, our deaf child is our first.
yeah.
So our husband and I, deaf child, he's really easy to adapt.
Yep.
Sibling comes along. The family unit, we get lots of support.
Yeah.
Grandparents and cousins are so little.
So
that's a really
do you want the spoiler alert on that one?
Yeah.
We-
I think I know it.
Yeah, you
I don't
do.
know if I want to hear
You
it.
do. Through your deaf child's life, you will hear over and over people closest to you, people, strangers, neighbors, but it hurts the most when it's closest to you tell you, oh, I'm going to learn American Sign Language. I want to learn American Sign Language, but get ready and just start counting. No, don't, because it came to a point where I was like, you know what? We should move. If we just moved, they'd all have a really good excuse, and it wouldn't hurt my heart so much that no one is taking the time to learn to communicate with Leah. Okay, right? And we moved. We moved to California. And at least for me, that was a way I protected us. Like, I can't take it. Leah's 2. Leah's deaf. Leah will always be deaf. And every time, my dad would be like, how do you say grandpa? I'm like, oh my gosh, it's still grandpa. It's still grandpa. I don't know what to do. And people saying, oh, I would love to learn. No, you wouldn't. Like, can we cut the BS? No, you won't. Stop telling me you will and do it. Statistically, let's just be honest. Statistically, Mom, you're not. You're probably not. If you don't sign up for a class, you won't learn ASL. It's a little exhausting. It's a little bit exhausting. You're not going to learn it if you don't take a class, is kind of the answer.
And I don't even know if I so much want them to learn ASL. it would be nice for them to be surrounded by deaf people for once and just kind of see like
What that?
how does it feel to be left out
Yeah.
a little bit, or how does it look to be a successful deaf adult? For them to just see like this is a thing, this is part of us. Like
It's so
I
weird.
think it's just hard because we don't live near family, so I can't be like, come to the deaf party with us.
Right.
Like that's not a thing.
Yeah.
If there was like you could come to a family camp with us and kind of see like if there was
This
like
is like.
if there was like an opportunity for families to bring like a buddy,
Yeah.
like
A friend, family.
someone, and it could be anyone who they wanted, right? It could be,
It could be their cousin,
super
it
close
could be-
cousin,
yeah,
it could be
yeah.
grandma, grandpa, it could be a neighbor that they're really close with.
Yeah.
But just so you can be like, this is kind of what our world looks like. on a
Totally
regular.
good. I know. No one can imagine. When we moved to California, that was part of it. It was like, I can't hear another person tell me that they're going to learn, they wish they could learn American Sign Language, or that they want to, or ask me if I've seen Mr. Holland's Opus. Like, I just can't take it. What do you guys have? Don't watch it.
You'll bawl your
20 years
face off.
ago, it was, oh my gosh, Leah's deaf. Have you seen Mr. Holland's Opus? And we're like,
Now it's,
What
have
is
you
it?
seen Signing Time? Well, they're deaf. Do you watch Signing Time?
I am.
We have to do that, but
Mr. Opus.
I am your Mr. Holland.
it's a really good movie. But for once you have grown up,
Once you're just like,
I went back and watched it. I was like,
anymore.
no.
this ruined the whole thing.
No. Anyway, the point of it, I wonder if every family's like, oh my gosh, yes, we've seen Signing Time. I have wondered, but it's really funny to hear it. When we moved to California, what we did, when you talk about your best buddy, is we moved next door to my sister Emily and her baby Alex. Yeah, see that? So we did what you're talking about. We did that. It was like, we're gonna go. There was an apartment open, like at the top of the stairs. There was Emily and Alex and Derek's house, and this one was open. And Rachel and Leah and Aaron moved in, and we put a baby gate at the top. And then when we had sign language classes, Alex and Leah learned together. So you nailed. You're right. You need a buddy. You need your hearing buddy next door, or your friend who just comes. You're right.
Luckily, my family did, and by my family, I mean, I do have a sister who is single and did start an interpreting program, so take that for what it's worth. I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take the one.
No,
I'll take the one of 7. You are my new favorite.
Yeah.
But at Thanksgiving with my husband's family, we invited our neighbors over, and she was doing the group thing with her kids and my kids and all the other nieces and nephews, and she was signing.
Yay!
And my husband's brother asked her, he goes, oh, Chris, that's so awesome that you knew sign language. And she's like, I don't know sign language. He's like, well, why'd you learn sign language? And she was like, because I know Weston. And he was like, oh, crap, we suck. And he's like, I'm his uncle and I didn't even do that. I'm like, preach.
Yeah, those friends.
Freaking, I'm like,
Right?
Chris, go guilt some more people.
That's awesome. So my younger siblings who were still in high school switched their foreign language to ASL because it happened to offer it. My mom took a community class, like at Cottonwood High School. She signed up for their ASL class. People will. And I think we sometimes forget that too. Like, I don't know that I was like, it's awesome that my siblings did that. And I think I'm going to call them tonight and thank them. Because we are so impacted by the ones that don't. And the ones that do are like, oh gosh, that's so great. But I think we sometimes forget to really say, you know what? That actually means the world to me. It means the world to me. For all the people who tell me, oh, I want to learn, or someday I'm going to learn, that you actually signed up and paid money and had your rear end in a seat and went to a class, thank you. That really means, I don't know that I've done that. So thank you for reminding me that that's a really important thing. People are that in our
It
lives.
did impact change. My brother-in-law started a family. He
Sign
learns,
language night or something.
and we do Skype because my husband's family lives all across the world, literally.
Yeah.
But we were actually our video was just posted by AI Media. My son wants our family Zoom chats.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
we like to say we're famous, but we're not.
So you know what? But that too, it's such a good example for other families. Like to show, that's like
I already cried to my brother-in-law 3 times. I was like,
Oh.
ugly cry.
That's all right. We got lots of tears ahead of us. That's all good. Well, you guys, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. I will make things to help. If I can figure it out, and your feedback is super important. I'm pretty good at going. We can do that. We can go camping. We can glamping. We can go glamping too.
I want a real bathroom.
Got it.
You're not digging a hole?
No, I actually did that when I was pregnant, and I will never
How
do
are
it
you going to
again.
learn how to explain that in ASL if you never do it?
When I was pregnant with Bella, I lived at the KOA because we moved when I was 30 weeks pregnant, and I lived at the KOA for 10 weeks. We did. So this is a thank you gift for you, Miss Rachel. My brother is an artist, and he drew this.
That's awesome.
And this is for you and a little card. Thank you so much for your time, for your resources, and just for your willingness to continue to serve and support our families.
Absolutely. If we can see the change, we can create the solution. That's what I think. So, like I said, Leah's 22. I'm not living the same life that when you have a 2-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old. It's not the same experience, but sometimes it is, and that's kind of upsetting, like I'm like, ooh, it is, this family, it is. Let's, that reminder is really good for me. And I think all day and all night about these things, like how do we get family? How do we get, so if you think, you all have my card, you all have my information. If you think of something or you have a list or you go, oh, you know what else we need, please reach out to me, okay? Really reach out, don't be afraid, reach out to me. I get to make stuff that helps families like mine, and it's a really cool job to have. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know.
Bye, St. George.
I'm like,
Someone be there, I'll pick it up. Yeah.
Where's Mitch?
And they're not. They're like,
I don't want to
less than
touch it.
an hour ago.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
There's waters, there's fruit, there's cookies, right?
Yes.
Thanks, you guys. For
I'm not going to touch it.
So we might all just be on film for a while more.
You can edit it.
I was going to show you.
You probably get videos like this all the time.
Here's my P6. Here's the very, very first time working
So
I have to
I was fine with my feet.
She's the best. I know what you do.
I didn't get
He has like 3 viral videos.
let's talk.
His best friend, that's perfect. His mom, their she's for family So they were at church and they are literally across the chapel with sign yelling. And that video went viral. Like he had like 80,000 views.
Yeah, Aaron texted them. These recruits wanted to wear masks to make sure they would. I was like,
So it's 6 hours because we used the liquid. It's and I'm like, this one, yeah, my husband was like,
Yeah, they sent me an invite and then I said, oh,
Yeah.
see, this is a text message.
Yeah. Like I was
Okay, you can't even, like, yeah.
for another church thing, and
sex.
Like,
And we're like,
it was like a general authority speech.
yeah, it's not.
You know, like walking through your room.
Like, they were like, I don't know.
And I'm just like, there's no way that I can't not say, do I know you? You know, like, I don't know. And I think there's an element of being.
She's like,
There's a way to.
so she's like, I tell her all this stuff and she's like,
You know, like.
I know. I was like, shit, I just have to.
Yeah. But it's funny.
The potential is extraordinary.
Yeah, I saw it.
When they make it synergistically, I'm like, okay, guess what? We posted everything. You have an implanted mouth. Maybe she's going to be the place. And then I was actually just looking at for that science fact video, which I thought was other redirected into that reminds you of she's good.
Because like my family has never because by the time I came around, mom and dad had been around
So she
for
lives
20-something years, and they already kind of come to terms with the fact that they were not to them. I see when I go to my and that's great. My mom has to raising that child of a mother.
What did she say? And then the mom, she said, oh, she didn't say anything. You probably just did your
Is your class
You can play this
an audiologist and be like,
I'm like, so you're what happened?
I'm like, hang on a second.
Because
That's like my dream is possible. My dream is
Oh yeah. And I'm like, and my mom's like, oh, she's not here. What? Do you know where she is? No.
He asked
I
me.
have no idea where she went.
And guess what? When they
She's
have
still to this day won't give my mom.
I'm like, do surgery on a face, and the person what the tech is, Leah was like,
That's not good.
So we go back.
So Tyler's mom,
I was remembering like
another
Okay, instead of that, a year process.
So
And then when
Ryan
you say, like,
actually
oh,
has
we can't. You don't have a dog
There's
here.
like my first
You're like,
Ashton
like,
described
she had
exactly.
and she didn't know
all
all
the
the
language.
language.
Definitely.
It's actually
Absolutely.
I was like, these are really I was
No
like,
great stuff. His mom is Melanie, or no, his mom is Melinda. Twin sister, also deaf, Melanie. You ready to go?
I'm so torn, and all of a sudden I'm like, thank you so much.
Oh yes, absolutely. Happy to be here. Yes. What's your name? Katie. Katie. My name's Cody.